So, what is happiness? We all have been taught from a really young age to achieve something, to get that job, to get that degree, to work really hard in school, get good grades, get married, all of these things in the promise that when you get there, you'll be happy. And this is just one way of society programming us from a really young age to always be in the search of something, to always be looking for that quote unquote happiness as something that is a reward for hard work, and it's something that we're not worthy of receiving unless we put in the work for it to be great and to achieve and to be successful. And I'm here to tell you that that is actually just not the truth. What I believe we should be focusing more of our attention on is not happiness, but in a state of allowing ourselves to be in a state of fulfillment and wholeness in our everyday lives. So, the way society has taught us what happiness is a sense of intense joy, excitement, elation, a lot of noise, a lot of just dopamine, right? And that was the same for me, for me as well. Growing up, I was always raised to be an achiever. I was always, although my parents did not actively tell me that you should be getting these grades and you should be a doctor, a lawyer, like they did not tell me that. But they had their way of steering me on a path that would be, something that is conforming. So I got my degrees from one, I got an engineering degree, which was some sort of promise of happiness. I was able to secure a really great job at a really young age at a Fortune 500 company, a company that anyone with my degree would have loved to work for. And I went on that quest in a search that is going to make me happy. I got my own house. I bought my own place at a really young age. I was only 25, and I thought I did that so then I'll be happy. Most recently, I thought getting a certain number of followers on Instagram, until I get those number of followers, I'll be on that quest and then I'll be happy. And I know that we all logically know that that's not true. Like we all know that happiness isn't something that's outside of us and this and that. We're all very, intelligent from a logical perspective. But there's so many times where although we know the truth, we don't act like we know the truth. And so we continue to place our feeling of happiness in a future state. And it's funny because every time I did the thing and I achieved that thing and I got the degree and I got the job, I got the paycheck, I got the house, all of these things, I was happy. I'm not gonna lie, I was happy, but that happy feeling was fleeting, and that's all of those life experiences and moments is what's teaching me that, or what taught me that happiness isn't something that I should really be on a quest for anymore. So now I'm actually on a quest for feeling a sense of peace and fulfillment and joy and calmness and clarity in my mind and how I make decisions, self discipline, self love. These are the things that I am now on a quest to anchor my quote unquote happinesses. And also, I don't completely blame us. It is in our human DNA, I believe, to some extent, where we believe that achieving something, is going to give us happiness is actually a sort of a survival mechanism, And then once we get to that state of happiness, it's fleeting, and then your brain and your body your mind, everything all of a sudden looks for that next problem to focus on, that next problem to solve, or that next thing that we want to achieve. And don't get me wrong, it is a healthy balance to have goals and want to achieve them, but making your everyday and your present moment, robbing yourself of that peace and happiness in your present moment in a hope that it's coming after something else, is just you robbing yourself of joy in life. And I'm telling you this because I've been there. And it's also part of our ego in some sense, where our ego is there for survival. It has helped us survive for so many billions of years. And it is there because we are always looking to protect ourselves. We're always looking to better ourselves. And sometimes that search or that search that our ego takes us on is not as self-serving for us. And realizing that and bringing that to our awareness really is key in being able to live a more fulfilled life. And so, in this episode of Mindset Mentors, episode 3, Cracking the Code to Happiness, I want to talk about specifically 3 fundamental concepts of how we can start to reprogram our brain and reprogram our inner self to be able to find that sense of quote unquote happiness, joy, fulfillment in the present moment, regardless of what is happening in your exterior. So before we go into the 3 fundamental things I want to talk about, preface really of this episode is to really understand that happiness management is a thing. It is work, especially when you are new to this concept of mindfulness and self-help and healing and all of that. Understand that it's not something that is just going to be dropped onto you. And if that happens, that's amazing. And it has happened to a lot of people, where you wake up the next day and you're a completely different person with a new mindset. But for the rest of us, it is something that you would have to actively train yourself to become, actively train your mind, your mindset to become. And so, having said that, happiness management, the way I see it, is learning to cultivate a deep inner sense of belonging, of worthiness, of joy, of peace and calm within yourself. And then when a trigger pops up, you are able to effectively dissect that trigger, come back into yourself, and analyze what it is that trigger is making you feel inside of you, and actively transmute that energy and bring yourself back up to that base level of feeling of happiness, peace, calm, joy, fulfillment. So number 1, a fundamental things you have to practice when you're in this space of happiness management. Do not compare yourself. There's a really famous quote by Theodore Roosevelt. He said, "Comparison is a thief of happiness." A lot of us probably have heard it at some point in our lives, and we all know the fundamental value that the quote has. But I really want you to think about that. Comparison is a thief of happiness. Once we understand, not just in a logical sense, but when you really feel that every single person that is on this planet is on a truly different path in life, you will not feel the need to compare. You absolutely cannot judge one person's success on someone else's timeline. You have to always remember that nothing is a straight line, and you have no idea what someone's life path was or what they had to go through in order to get to where they are now. And it really comes down to, are you really comparing their present moment while you have no idea, first of all, what was happening in their behind their scenes up until this present moment that they're living? You have no idea what the behind the scenes of their present moment is. You only kind of see what's presented to you. And you absolutely have no idea what their future holds. So it's isn't it really foolish of us to compare our present moment where you know all the behind the scenes and all the work you had to put in to get to this present moment, you know, all the current things you're dealing with in your present moment, and you have no idea as well what's coming in your future state. Isn't it really foolish of us to compare? Because it really is like comparing apples to oranges. It really is. And once you really understand this concept from, like I said, not just a logical point of view, but from your inner core, you will never see someone else's success. You will never see someone else winning as something that is, you know, stealing you of your ability to thrive and your joy and your happiness and your presence on this planet. In addition to that, you have to have an understanding that everyone wins a little, everyone loses a little, and that is just how life is. So, like I said, coming back into yourself, looking within, you have to develop an intense feeling of belief in yourself, in your higher self, in God, in the universe, that you truly are on a path that is meant for you to be of your highest success. And when you really start to live from a place of this belief, and you're just focusing on your goals, you're focusing on your hobbies, you're doing self-care, you're feeding yourself good food, you're getting your finances straight, and you're so focused on yourself, nothing that someone else does will throw you off your feet, because you just have this belief. And once you get to this state, you will look at other people, and you may not be, also let me say that, like, you will not be where you want to be yet, but someone else being there isn't going to make you feel like you won't get there. And like I said, it's easy for us to say and understand from a very surface level logical perspective, but actually believing this to be true and then looking at the world from that lens, that's where the work is. There's a really famous quote, I can't remember who it's by, but it goes something like, there's room for all of us to make it to the finish line. There's room for all of us to make it to the finish line. We're all on our different paths. We're all on our different purposes. And you really have to just believe that. Number 2 of happiness management I want to talk about is do not expect. Do not have expectations. And I have another quote for you. This is by Shakespeare. And he said, expectation is the root of all heartache. I'm going to say it again. Expectation is the root of all heartache. And this is something that I have honestly learned from my life path and my life journey, that expecting people to act a certain way or be who you need them to be is just a it's a very sensitive, vulnerable place for you to be, because you are essentially putting your sense of self-worth, your sense of joy, happiness, fulfillment, all of that into the hands of someone else, and you're telling them, hold this. It's actually also very selfish, because if the same was to happen to you, I bet you wouldn't be able to do the same. Or you may think you're doing the same, but again, it's not going to be exactly what that other person expected of you. Because let's be honest, none of us actually can really fulfill everyone else's expectations. And this is why I always say, like, have expectations for yourself and fulfill those expectations for yourself, because end of the day, we only have ourselves to fall back on and rely on. Of course, I know when we're in love, especially, or we're really good friends with someone, we love to say, oh my God, I love you so much, like, you're my forever, and this and that. But you really only have yourself forever. People change, circumstances change, life throws curveballs at you, and neither you should be responsible for someone's happiness in that sense, or neither should you expect other people to be of service to you and of to hold that happiness for you. And there is actually kind of a caveat to this. When I say don't expect things from people, we're not talking about don't expect people to do their responsibilities, especially in relationships. I know expectation of someone to help out with your chores, or expectations to provide for you, or expectation to do life in a sense of like getting things done or driving you somewhere, like things like that's needed for your day to day. Like those expectations are absolutely validated. You should expect your partner to step up and help with the kitchen, or help with the kids, or help with, like the day to days. But the kind of expectation that I'm talking about is a little bit more, it's a little bit deeper than that. The expectation I'm talking about is expecting someone to give you a really, really nice birthday present, or expecting someone to throw you a really nice surprise birthday party, or expecting like extravagant big gestures. That's the kind of expectation I'm saying you shouldn't have. But that doesn't mean when it happens you don't relish and enjoy it. It just means that you're not expecting people to act a certain way to make you feel that sense of joy and happiness and fulfillment. And honestly, for me, high expectations have always let me down. Having high expectations of people has always let me down. And there's another thing, right, where sometimes you have expectations, but you're not fully communicating to that person what those expectations are, and the way that you see something work out in your mind is so different from how it actually may happen in real life. So let's say like you had an expectation of someone throwing you like a really nice proposal, right? And it's in your mind, and the reality of it doesn't fully match that reality that you created in your mind. But that's not that person's fault at the same time, right? So just being able to manage your expectations of people, allowing things to just kind of flow into your life. So when someone does something really nice for you, you're so appreciative of it, but you're not at the same time expecting it. So so that expectation doesn't become, a hindrance to yourself. And that expectation actually kind of is what steals that joy away from you. And also, in a sense, I would say having low expectations is a way to protect yourself. It is a way to protect your heart. Another thing that I've noticed in this realm of expectations is expecting your friends and family to support you and your endeavors. No one owes you that. No one owes you, if let's say you're starting a new business or you're starting a new venture or whatever, your family and friends don't owe you that celebration of you living your life. They absolutely don't. They don't owe you to comment or like your post related to your new business. They don't owe you to spend money on your new business. They don't owe you to, celebrate you and talk about all your achievements. They don't. And it's unfortunate. In an ideal world, yes, we would want that from our friends and family. If it's given to us, we can accept it and be appreciative of it. But expecting people to show up for you in that way also is actually very damaging, because again, you don't know what people are going through. You don't know what people's current situation is, and maybe they won't be able to show up for you in the way that you expect them to show up for you. And again, their lack of showing up for you should not be something that stands in your way of that joy and happiness and fulfillment. And we're getting to the end of this podcast episode. So number three is a super, 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 I can't stress this enough, vital part of living a fulfilled life. So Winston Churchill once said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." And so, with that, number three is to dedicate your life and to live a life of service. Living in a state of service does wonders for your sense of well being, but there is a caveat to this. And so, if we don't practice this correctly, we can really go on a downward spiral. So, living a life of service is to be a person who has an open heart and is giving to people with the caveat of you have given to yourself first. You have to absolutely give to yourself, fill your cup up with everything, and only then, with your overflowing cup, can you give to someone else. So, first step of living a life of service is to be so full of love, happiness, joy, financial freedom, success, everything to yourself. So, what happens when you are filling someone else's cup when yours isn't filled yourself is you are giving to receive. And this is a place, again, it brings us back to expectation, where you cannot give someone to something in a selfish kind of mode where you're like, I'm giving you this now, so it will be returned to me in another time. And that's why I say you have to fill up your cup first. And only when you fill your cup up fully, you will be able to give to others with an open heart, without feeling like you're missing out, without feeling resentment, without feeling like you're being taken advantage of, because you are so full with yourself to begin with. And I actually see this a lot with people who say, once I become a millionaire, I'll do this charity and that charity, and I'll do this and that for people. A true giver at heart is someone who gives with what they have. So, for example, let's say someone just started a job, their paycheck is maybe not so much, so they have like a small cup, but their cup, that small cup that they have, is full. It's so full, and they're so content and taken care of themselves, that anything extra that comes to that cup is an overflow, and is something that they use for service for the people around them, so friends, family, charities, etc. So what happens when you are in this giver mindset is you feel a sense of just fulfillment. I did listen to a podcast a while ago where they talk about how sharing and giving gives you a dopamine hit in your brain. And so you really feel good for that act of giving and of that act of service. And I think the reason that all of us are here on this planet is to be of service. That is, I believe, the only way to live this life truly, fully, is to be of service. And so when you give to people, you share your happiness with people, you share your financial success with somebody, you take someone out on a nice date, or you take someone out, you buy someone a really nice gift, or you give them a really cool experience, it makes you feel happy. And so if we dedicate our lives always to a sense of sharing and giving and service, with the caveat of having done all of that for yourself first, I think you would have cracked the code to doing this life. You would have cracked the code to feeling fulfilled and happy and joyful and just whole in your everyday. So having said that, we're getting to the end of this. I just want to conclude this episode by saying, stop looking for happiness as something that you need to work for. Redefine happiness for yourself. Most of the time, happiness, somewhere in our deep down consciousness, what we're looking for is wholeness, fulfillment, peace, calm, and joy. And so if you find ways that you can activate these aspects of you by different mindful practices every day, by not comparing yourself to people, by not expecting things from people and living truly a life of service, you are essentially going to crack the code to quote unquote happiness. And with that, that is the conclusion of episode 3, Mindset Mentress. This is Nikki K signing out, and I will see you next week with another topic.